Welcome in, everyone, and thank you for listening to the 178th ever episode of the Missouri Sports Podcast, brought to you by 106 Apparel and recording from the Revel Advertising Studio in beautiful Springfield, Missouri. I'm one of your hosts, Cameron Albert, alongside my good friend and fellow Mizzou fan, Kyle DeVries. How are you doing today, Kyle?
Pretty good, Cameron. I got to confront you really quick. I just thought of this.
Oh, jeez.
I think you might be telling a lie sometimes whenever you say it's beautiful Springfield, Missouri.
Well, yeah.
Because it's cold.
Every day is a beautiful gift, Kyle.
Okay, I agree with that.
No, I've got you on board.
Yes, I'm on board. Continue with your intro as always.
This week we are talking basketball pretty much exclusively. There's a little bit of football news, so if that's what you're all about, we'll get you in right at the beginning here. If you don't like basketball, don't stick around, but we wish you would. We got a lot to say.
Little mixed signals there.
Well, do whatever you want. We'll be here for you regardless.
We got some complaining to do.
That is true. Before we get into all of that, of course, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube. Leave us a review on Spotify or Apple or wherever you listen to us. Leave a comment on YouTube if our complaining later just really hits you the wrong way. Let us know why we're wrong. And you can support the podcast directly on Patreon, and you can find information there, patreon.com/Missouri Sports Pod, patreon.com/Missouri Sports Pod. Kyle, there's still transfer news trickling in. Last week we kind of recapped all the transfers that have committed to Mizzou in the last couple of weeks, and the program kind of made some social media posts and stuff just kind of welcoming this transfer class into the fold for next football season. They're not done though, and there are some new names to keep track of. Where do you want to start with that, you think? Or I can pick a name, we can go from there.
Yeah, pick a name.
So we already have one hopper that has committed to Mizzou. That was Tyrone Hopper from North Carolina. And now we have Tyron Hopper, previously of the Florida Gators.
Mm-hmm.
And he visited Mizzou. Why don't you tell us about him a little bit?
Yeah, I think he just recently visited campus. So kind of an interesting story. He entered the transfer portal maybe like last week and was in the portal for, I kid you not, like a matter of minutes before withdrawing his name and returning to Florida. He never left, obviously. And then was back in the portal like a week later and is visiting Mizzou. And this, if he does commit to Mizzou, this will be almost like a gift from God because he's a linebacker. We're in desperate need. And he was a highly ranked recruit. I think he was like a 6.0, like 4-star on Rivals coming out of high school. Really high ceiling guy. And it genuinely felt like Florida did not want to lose this guy. And we're pretty devastated whenever he announced the second time that he was for sure transferring this time. And I do think Missouri will need to probably fight off Auburn for Hopper. But having I think it's a relative of some kind. I think it's his cousin, maybe, Tyrone Hopper, already committed to Missouri, obviously really helps the cause. So if we could land Tyron Hopper, that'd be awesome.
Yes, I agree. And it seems like we got a little bit of an advantage getting him on campus already, so maybe they can close the deal. Another linebacker, I believe, named Ian Matthews. Is that right?
Ian Matthews is a defensive lineman, I believe, transfer from Auburn. And I think he was only there for 1 year and didn't appear in any games, I don't believe, but he's transferring from Auburn, and Missouri had an in-home visit with him the other night. I think Coach Drink and Coach Al Davis went out to go see him. So seems like we could be in a good position with Ian Matthews.
Was there another linebacker somewhere that? Am I losing it?
Yeah, I don't remember his name at the top.
I think I'm just thinking of the guy that is transferring from Louisiana.
Right.
And he's announcing soon?
I think
maybe?
so. In the next few days.
I'll be honest. I've kind of written him off as not coming to Mizzou.
Is he a Florida lean, you think?
That's kind of what I think, but I guess there's still a chance.
Yeah.
I don't know for sure.
Yeah, it might be very possible that, some of the inner workings of recruiting, when you got one spot for a certain position, Mizzou might be kind of eyeing Hopper for that spot, so they may have told him to wait a little bit. And Mizzou might have gotten good news from Hopper, so they might have told this other guy, find somewhere else.
Yeah.
in nicer terms.
Yeah, and Florida is apparently in need of a linebacker as well.
Yeah.
Let's see. Who else do I have here? We talked about Matthews. Tyler Stevens. He is a tight end.
Yeah, Tyler Stevens, tight end from Buffalo. And he had his stats in front of me a little while ago, but don't now. I think he had a touchdown and like 150 yards receiving or something last year.
Yeah, only like maybe 15 receptions or something.
Yeah, nothing crazy at all. But looking at Buffalo's team from last year, it looked like they were really run heavy, ran the ball the majority of the time. I think 30 of their 45 touchdowns on the year were on the ground, and so they were just really trying to run the ball a lot and did it pretty well. And a familiar name is Bence Polgar, who we talked about last week. He is now a Missouri Tiger, and so those guys were former teammates, and Missouri's desperate for a tight end, so it looks like they're just kind of looking for a body right now.
6'6", 229, according to Buffalo's official roster. That'll play. And a long reception of 35 yards.
Yeah. It definitely looks like Ryan Horsecamp is in line for some major snaps next year, and so hopefully he's ready.
Okay, that's all the transfer news. I believe we have had some, rivals. The recruiting database updated their rankings for high school recruits, and a few Missouri commits got a little bit of a bump. Let's see here. Marquise Graciel is rated a 5.9 4-star player, 116th best player in the country in his class, according to Rivals. Luther Burden still staying strong there in the top 5 nationally of all positions. He's listed at number 4 overall. And DJ Weslak is now has a 5.8 rating as a 4-star, 182nd nationally in his class.
Yeah, Weslak actually went down to a 3-star on Rivals for a little while, and then had a really nice showing at the All-American Bowl in January. So he returned to a 4-star status. So I don't know. I mean, that doesn't really affect the team rankings or anything too much, but nice to see a couple guys get a little bump.
Yeah, I think on 24/7 Sports we're still sitting at 12th nationally and 5th in the SEC. But honestly, we could inch closer to Kentucky for the 4 spot. They have 3 or 4 more commitments than we do for the class. So if we fill that in with a few more 3-stars, it's possible we may creep a little bit closer to Kentucky, but it would take something pretty big at this point to vault Missouri into the top 10. But top 15 works for me just fine. Is that all you got for news before we jump right into basketball?
That's all I can think about right now.
Okay, so Missouri played 2 games since we last spoke. One against Alabama, one against Auburn. The Alabama game, they lost that one 86-76. It was a little bit of a roller coaster late. Missouri had a 10-point lead with under 10 minutes to play. But Alabama cut it to 5 there just a couple minutes later. And then they went on an 18-3 run to end the game. Like I said, the final score was 86-76. And the biggest story, in my opinion, in that game was free throws. Missouri shot 5 free throws, made 3 of them. Alabama, on the other hand, shot 29 free throws and made 21 of them. And this is true despite the fact Alabama shot 3 more 3-pointers than Mizzou.
Yeah, Cam, this is going to be a little bit of a theme this episode, unfortunately, is the refs in both of the games that Missouri played this week. But you have a good point. When both teams are playing man-to-man, especially in a competitive college basketball game, I just can't see any scenario unless you've got a team that's just shooting like 53s a game or something. I can't imagine a scenario that we should realistically have a 29-5 differential in free throws shot. That is unbelievable. And
then factoring in the fact that actually Alabama shot more threes than Mizzou.
Exactly. And Mizzou actually shot better from 3 and from 2 than Alabama in this game. They made more 3-pointers. They made more 2-pointers. They was better percentage-wise. So Missouri, in my opinion's offense was good enough to win this game, but the free throw disparity was just backbreaking.
Yeah, I would say the defense for Missouri kind of let them down late. It looked much better early on, and then kind of saw some of the same stuff as the first. And speaking of the first matchup, I'm pretty sure I predicted that Alabama would score 86 points and Missouri would not score 91 because Alabama scored 86 in the first matchup. Anyway.
They scored 86 in the second one?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. You really did predict that. I remember you saying that last week.
So I feel like Missouri's defense kind of broke down late, and Alabama was just kind of getting whatever they want at the rim.
Yeah.
And that was true for both teams in the first matchup.
Right.
And Javon Quinterly just torched us, and he struggled early, but then he turned it on, was getting to the rim at will, and they were just finishing plays, and Missouri's offense was, Missouri scored 9 points in the final 10 minutes to Alabama's 30.
Yeah, Quinterly, I don't even think he scored a point until, halfway through the second half or something, but he definitely went on a personal run once he did start, realizing he could get to the basket easily.
Finished with 13 points.
And, you can't just put all of this on the refs. Missouri's defense struggled, and, there's a lot of other things that factored in. Brazil barely played in this game. Am I thinking of the right game where he only played 12 minutes or something like that?
I'll tell you for sure, he played 13 minutes.
Seemed like he played early and then just sat almost the entire game, came in at the very end and hit a 3, a clutch 3. And we're where was Brazil this whole game?
Well, Konzo specifically said that he liked he sat Brazil in the second half because Alabama moved to a 5-guard lineup on the floor. And I just disagree. I just feel like that shouldn't matter in this situation.
I think they forgot he was on the bench. I forgot about him.
That's possible.
Who's this guy?
Yeah.
All right, we'll put him in.
Yeah. They're looking at the bench go, Trevon, get out there.
Where have you been?
Whoops. We'll talk about him more in the Auburn recap, but he's got to be, how many times do I have to say this? I'm a broken record. He's got to be out there 25 plus minutes. I would be fine with 30.
Yeah. I just thought of some news that we didn't mention was Sean Dewey-Gordon has transferred, which I thought of that because why would you play a talented freshman only 12 minutes a game when you just had another freshman transfer because he wasn't getting playing time? When are you going to learn this lesson, Konzo? Freshmen transfer when they don't get to play.
How many times do we have to tell you this, old man?
That's exactly what I was thinking when I said that. But seriously, though, that's got to be pretty fresh in your mind. Sean Dewey-Gordon's I'm out because I'm not getting any playing time. And now you've got Trayvon Brazil, who would be a much more significant loss. And he's not getting enough playing time. That scares me.
Yeah, and he had 0 fouls on the game. So it's not like he was in foul trouble or anything. It was literally matchup dependent. And I don't know. Honestly, I feel like Brazil can guard guards as well as Boogie Coleman, as well as Kobe Brown to some extent. Like maybe 80% of what Kobe brings guarding the perimeter, I think Brazil has that, honestly. And his length, covers up for if a guy gets around him, he can still come from behind and get the block.
Yeah, I don't get that explanation at all.
I guess we talk about Sean Dewey-Gordon just for a little bit. He was not seeing any playing time at all. And although when he would get a minute here or there, it was he was hunting for a shot, it seemed like, which, whatever. He was usually getting in the game because it wasn't going so well for the starters or the first couple guys off the bench. So, he's probably thinking, okay, I'll get in here and try to make something happen. It's kind of a shame because he seemed like he had potential with his athleticism, and it looked, at least in practice and some videos that I saw, that he had a really good good looking shot from three. I think maybe it looked to me in the minutes he did play, he hadn't quite caught up to the speed of college basketball yet.
Sure.
And that's obviously very common for freshmen. And that's what makes Trevon Brazile look so good, is that he doesn't seem phased by the speed of the game and the athletes he's going up against. So I would have liked to see what Sean Dewey-Gordon could be as a junior and senior. But we'll have to keep track of him on KenPom and see where he goes and how he does, I guess.
Yeah, I personally don't really understand transferring in his situation, like mid-year, obviously, which is the same situation for every player ever. Is I don't know what goes on behind the scenes. I don't know. Maybe there's things happening where they're not happy here, or what. Maybe they want to go somewhere closer to home, whatever. Which is a completely reasonable thing to do. But if you're going elsewhere because of playing time, I just think it's really hard to improve your stock whenever you leave mid-season for a team you never really played for. It's just hard for another entity to be like, oh yeah, we want you here. We want you to come to our team.
Right. Unless you're like a top 60 player, or like recruit coming in. I mean, because we've seen both sides of that in recent years. We saw Mario McKinney barely get playing time, transfer, and have to go what I would call down a step to New Mexico State. But then we saw Trey Jackson not get much playing time at all and move to what is currently a better program in Seton Hall, and he's doing pretty well there.
But he played a lot more than...
and he was a top 70 recruit coming out of high school.
Right. Yeah, I think Trey Jackson had shown enough as a freshman to be like, okay, there's potential here. Sean Dewey-Gordon did not play enough for us to see anything. And I agree with you. I mean,
but I feel like, to your point earlier, the Trey Jackson situation should be a cautionary tale of how to handle Brazile.
Exactly. Because Brazile is a perfect example, I think, of a guy that would move up if he wanted to transfer. And so don't tell him I said that. But it's kind of I think it's kind of unfortunate that Dewey-Gordon transferred, but I think there's probably worse people that could leave, and that opens up a scholarship for whoever may be the coach next year to do with whatever they want to do with it. And I'll just throw out, maybe coincidentally, that Jordan Wilmore hasn't been seen in the last probably 5 or 6 games, so I don't know if the writing's on the wall is there.
There's zero chance he's on this roster next year. That's my prediction.
Okay, that's pretty bold, but that's where I was getting at eventually.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think we'll have a couple of open scholarships.
Zero chance. What I thought you were going to say, coincidentally, is coach at Louisville, Chris Mack, formerly of Xavier, is leaving Louisville. Maybe under...
forcibly.
Maybe, I don't know. I don't know why I thought of that.
Do you think he'd want to maybe keep coaching somewhere, or...
Probably.
Maybe somewhere like
We'll have to see where he ends up.
Maybe just somewhere that like it has a coach opening, or
he's familiar with the Midwest.
That's true.
That's all I'll say there.
Add to the list.
Yeah.
We definitely don't have a list.
No. There's no reason to do that prematurely. Alabama game. Missouri, I felt like this being on the road, I don't know. I just kind of felt like, well, I even said it. We were watching it together, and Missouri, it was up by a few with like 7 minutes left, and I was like, well, there's totally still time left in this game for Alabama to win this game by 10 points.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what they did.
Exactly what happened. I can confirm you said those exact words.
I'm not even trying to be...
You're really trying to...
I'm not even trying to be braggadocious here.
You are.
I'm just saying that was the feeling while watching of like, yeah, Missouri's hanging around here, but it looks like at any minute Alabama's just going to flip the switch and take over this game.
They certainly have the ability to do that. And if you remember Alabama game last year, when both teams were really good, remember that comeback Alabama had where they just about beat us? I mean, they were down by like 20 or more.
And Alabama just lost to Georgia?
Yeah, last night.
Yeah, right before the Mizzou Auburn game.
Yeah, it makes Missouri's win against them look not as impressive.
Yeah. 2 wins would have been pretty cool, though. So anything else on that game? Let me look here. Coleman had 17 points, 5 of 9 from 3. He's looked much better lately.
He's looking really good.
This was the first of 2 games in a row where Kobe was a little bit quiet on offense, so that's disappointing. It's like there's very few games where we can have both the supporting cast step up and make shots and Kobe be his normal, 15 and 8 self. So you need both of those things to happen to beat good teams. Let's see here. There's definitely this trend of kind of shortening the bench a little bit and playing 3 to 5 guys, 30 minutes plus. That's been a
really
trend
nice.
that I've been happy to see.
Yeah.
So then Missouri hosted the number 1 team in the country, the Auburn Tigers. Bruce Pearl has taken Auburn to the number 1 spot in the polls for the first time in their history, I believe. That was said a few times on the broadcast. And we talked about last week how they are just super balanced. They've got a really good post presence with Walker Kessler, freshman phenom wing in Jabari Smith. And we didn't really talk about all 3 of these guys, but they have 3 point guards that can all get to the rim, shoot it, distribute, that are just interchangeable. And we saw KD Johnson.
I remember him from last year.
Yeah. I honestly thought Wendell Green was a little bit more of a prominent player. I mean, they play about the same number of minutes. Green, Zepp Jasper, incredible name, and KD Johnson kind of all play around 20 to 25 minutes a game at that point guard spot, basically.
I feel like Johnson's killed us the last few times we played him. He is a scrappy player, really annoying to play against, and he was the X factor for them last night.
Yeah, this game was very similar to the Alabama game where Missouri was just they had a lead for pretty much all of the game and looked like they were not scared of Auburn, even with the number 1 ranking. And the first thing that just jumped out at me when I turned the game on was the student section. Holy cow, they showed up full force. I mean, if you don't show up when the number 1 team in the country comes to town, then you are lost. But they showed up. I think the athletic department had to give away pretty nice looking coffee mugs. And that's pretty cool. But
they were walking around campus advertising themselves in the game, and whatever they did, it really worked, and it was awesome. There were certain camera views of I don't know, a 3-point shot going in, and all you saw was a wall of students behind the basket and stuff, and there was just not an open seat. I mean, it felt
they had to have overflow for the students.
Yeah.
Into the kind of the corners of the
it
arena.
really felt like a game you would have watched at Mizzou Arena 10 years ago or something like that.
It really did. And that stuck out to me. Some of those back and forths, Missouri would go on a little mini 5-0 run and take a 3-point lead, and the crowd is so into it, and I just had the biggest smile on my face. This is so fun to watch. This is the college basketball that I love. And man, it's a struggle when you don't get that very often.
I turned my TV up super loud because I was just loving the crowd noise and everything. But the rest of the arena still wasn't very well attended. A lot of very bright yellow seats.
Yeah, at least it was loud because of the students.
Yeah,
it
was super loud.
I will always be a proponent of moving the student section to where they are on TV.
Right.
And if anybody's going to show
closer to the court.
Yeah. It'll be those guys, and it just looks like a more full arena. And if Duke can do it, then there's no reason anybody else can't. This was a heartbreaker, though, and in more ways than one. It was a heartbreaker because Missouri had this game. Not in a way that Missouri collapsed, but they were just right there till the end, making plays all the way down to Javon Pickett's 3-pointer to take the lead. What was it, 51-50 at that point? I can't remember exactly. But I think that gave Missouri a 1-point lead. And, man, it just really looked like they were going to pull this one off.
Yeah.
And there were a few plays down the stretch where it looked like Auburn just blatantly got away with. They got away with a travel, and they got called, or they went to the free throw line for an and one.
Yeah.
That was completely unjustified.
Yeah, both of those plays were from, what's his first name? Johnson?
Yeah, KD.
KD Johnson. Both of those plays involved him. The first one was where he bowled over Boogie Coleman, got the and one, which honestly I was completely fine with that, just being a made basket, no call. A lot of Mizzou fans were saying offensive foul. I don't even know if it was that, but to me, it was the last thing it was a defensive foul on Boogie. I think I would have just been completely fine with that, just being a normal made basket. And
Boogie was trying everything he could to get out of the way.
Yeah, he had his arms straight up in the air.
If even like falling backwards away from him.
Definitely.
Avoiding contact successfully.
Yes. And then in my opinion, even more egregious was the following possession for Auburn was when KD Johnson was driving in. He was directly under the basket and shuffled his feet very obviously, took like an entire jump and made the basket after that and didn't get called for it. And that was to put Auburn up by 4 or 5 points and pretty much seal the game for them. I don't even know if they needed to score another point after that. So that's pretty brutal. And the SEC Network on Twitter posted a video of both of those two plays I just referenced and was like, oh, KD Johnson's so clutch. Like, well, actually, no, he traveled, and he was not very clutch.
Yeah,
and I'm glad you put this out there for everyone to see.
Honestly, yeah, they like queued it up perfectly. Be like, yeah, and actually both of these were bad calls.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was a little bit of a wreck, even right after that. So it wasn't over. Missouri had a chance with the ball down 1, and
Pickett made a really clutch 3 with 25-30 seconds left.
Yeah. I'm honestly getting it a little bit mixed up in my head, but I'm just thinking of the last possession. Or no, what am I trying to say? I can't remember how the game actually ended.
Pickett made a 3 with about 30 seconds left. And then Auburn, and then that was the last time Missouri touched the ball on offense.
Yes, I'm with you.
And so Missouri was down by 1.
Auburn comes down and like uses almost the entire clock, and we should probably talk about whether Missouri should have fouled or not.
Right.
And then they miss a shot.
Yep.
And I'm obviously very biased, but I had a foul. If the refs would have come to me, I had a foul on Kessler over Kobe on the rebound. And then the ball goes out of bounds as the clock expires, and Missouri doesn't get another possession.
Right. Yeah, it was the most like perfect ending. It was the most like classic thing because, I mean, Auburn had been dominating offensive rebounds all night. But, yeah, there was a lot of contact under the basket after the missed shot. Of course, Kessler, who has like a 10-foot wingspan, like gets a paw on the ball and just kind of it was enough to make it roll away, and that's how the game ended.
Yeah, Ronnie DeGray got a hand on it, couldn't corral it. You mentioned offensive rebounds. Auburn, 25-10.
Yeah,
out-rebounded Missouri.
It felt like they were getting 2 or 3 shots at a basket every single time they had the ball down on their side of the court.
Yeah, especially down the stretch. I was like having like a convulsions or something.
Wow,
like,
that sounds really serious.
Yeah, well, it was. I don't want to watch back a video of what I did when we couldn't get that rebound, and then the game just ended. I was like losing my mind.
Yeah. That was really sad.
Yeah, I was yelling. Surprised I didn't wake up the baby. But should Missouri have fouled there? Down by 1 point, like 5-second difference between the game clock and shot clock.
No timeouts.
Right.
So I'm not sure they really had a plan going into that moment. I mean, Pickett made the 3, and then it was just right into Auburn's possession. I mean, there was no chance for Missouri to call a timeout, or there was no huddle up before Auburn's next possession. There was 5 seconds between the shot clock and the game clock. In retrospect, it's so easy to say Missouri should have fouled there, force them to make free throws, and at the very worst, you're playing for a 3-point game with 1 possession left.
Mm-hmm.
In the moment, I'm thinking play defense.
Yeah.
And I think they did exactly what I would have done. And looking back, it looks really bad now because they couldn't get the rebound. And they had time to get the rebound and have 6 seconds to drive the ball down, but they would have obviously needed a clean rebound and didn't get it.
Yeah. Instinctively, I always kind of take the extend the game point of view. If you're down, we need more possessions to try to get back in this. And you're losing. 5 seconds. I feel like if I'm a coach, I need to know ahead of time I'm always doing the same thing in this situation. I don't think that's a thing you decide in the moment.
And Missouri's in the double or both teams are in the double bonus.
Yeah,
I believe at that point maybe.
I think
or
so.
Would have been a 1-1.
I don't know.
I'm not sure.
Surely not.
That's pretty crucial information, but I'm not sure.
I think I would, in the moment as a fan watching the game on TV, it never crossed my mind that they should foul there. I'll be completely honest. But looking back at it, I think the coaching staff needs to be ready to foul in that situation. I think 5 seconds is not enough, honestly, with no timeouts. Yep. If you have a timeout and you can secure the rebound and draw something up with 5 minutes or with 5 seconds left, then I'm more for that, just letting them play defense. But with no timeouts, like, it's going to be a scramble for a rebound,
a lot of contact.
Yeah, you've been struggling to rebound the ball, but I don't know. I feel like if I'm a coach, then I maybe just do it always the same way. And if it's like less than 8 seconds, I always foul or something like that. I do feel like
that was like a pretty uncommon situation for whatever reason. But I agree. I mean,
they did just kind of come across unprepared. Like they weren't expecting to make a 3 there and it be a 1-point game.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah. Should they have fouled? Probably. If I can like look back and then decide if I can redo the situation. Yeah, I think that's probably what they should have done and guarantee themselves another shot.
Right.
And at the worst, they're going down with a chance to tie.
Oh man.
That
was a court storming. Possibility.
100%. And even in a season that is pretty much lost at this point, you don't have a chance to beat the number 1 team in the country on your home floor very often. And I almost feel like that's just the saddest thing to me. It was like that just would have been such a cool moment for a team that so desperately needs something right to happen. And to beat the number 1 team on your own home floor is something that, 20 years from now, we'd still be talking about as like a really fun game we remember.
And Missouri, honestly, is not bad at home against the number 1 team in the country. Like, they kind of spotlighted that. I think Missouri has 4 wins.
Like, historically?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Against the number 1 team, which is pretty good. 3 of those against Kansas.
Nice.
Okay, I'm trying to... Now, we talked about the ending of the game, obviously. Go ahead.
I was just going to throw out... I do think the refs really struggled at the end of the game, but I will say... I felt, and we had this conversation before we started recording, but I think the refs struggled to make good calls throughout the game, but it was still fairly even, as opposed to the Alabama game, which at the Alabama game last week, Missouri, there was like a foul discrepancy of like 10-2 at one point in the second half, where Missouri had 10 fouls called against them and Alabama only had 2. That's that's a travesty.
29-5
yes.
Free throw attempts.
Right. But in the Auburn game, it really felt like, the fouls were being called pretty evenly. They were making wrong calls sometimes, but it felt pretty even, which is fine. That's really all I ask for.
Yeah, I mean, Missouri had some calls go their way. The Yaya Keita block call that was where bad. Wendell Green hurt his knee for 2 minutes.
That's pretty bad.
He was clearly in the circle and moving, and they showed that replay 3 times because Green got hurt, and it's quit showing that because that was obviously a bad call in Missouri's favor.
Yeah, Keita just sprinted down the court after he got the call. He's just I'm getting out of here.
All right.
Anyways, all that to say, it did feel like Auburn got the calls or the no calls when it really, really mattered in the most pivotal time of the game, and that was backbreaking. And but I know obviously Missouri could have done more to win the game. They had a stretch where they were really bad offensively in this game, didn't make a basket for 6 or 7 minutes of game time or something.
Right. A field goal. I think they had made a couple free throws, but Yeah, I mean, that's always going to happen with this Missouri team. It just hope it's less than 5 minutes, but often it's 6-7 minutes. Something that I noticed throughout was Auburn's defense was like playing on-ball pressure, like past the 3-point line, and Missouri was able to kind of get behind them and get to the rim fairly easily multiple times, where it just looked like maybe Auburn's defense was like overextending itself a little bit, and it wasn't exactly a backdoor cut, but Missouri offensive player would just find themselves behind the defense a little bit and be able to make a play. Pickett had a couple runners in the lane where I was like, oh, that can't be a high percentage shot, but they went down a couple times. Kobe made some clutch, like 2-point jumpers. Amari Davis had a really nice play where he was coming across like the free throw line, caught the ball in stride, nailed a 2-pointer. But last thing I want to say about the officiating is it did seem like Auburn's defense was way more physical on the perimeter than Missouri's defense. And I think I'm comfortable saying that this is a trend that I've seen with the Conzo Martin Missouri teams. They play to not let you drive past them, and they play to kind of pack the paint and not give up layups, especially from like the top of the key. And other coaches just have a very different defensive philosophy, it seems like, some of the time. And I'm thinking about a Bruce Pearl or like a Bob Huggins or somebody like that. That's just, they are coaching their guys to be in your face on the perimeter constantly. And it's not the end of the world if your guy gets around you, basically. And they were so physical, so handsy. I felt like even though the fouls were even, that was to Missouri's disadvantage because they just aren't as physical on the perimeter.
Yeah, I think that's a good point because I do feel like it looks like the Mizzou players are instructed, like, do not let this player get around you. And so whenever they're trying to keep that from happening, that's when they have those, like, unnatural looking, like, reach-in fouls where they're trying to keep the guy in front of them.
Right.
And they get called for that stuff all the time.
Yeah.
And they should,
right,
in my opinion.
Yeah. Now that I'm thinking about it, Drew Smith was a player that when he figured out that the refs were letting you be physical on the perimeter, he would dial it up a notch and be like, okay, I'm going to get 4 steals this game because I'm just going to be relentless and handsy and body the guy like around the 3-point line. And Missouri just doesn't have the guards, the defensive guards this year that are quick enough to do that against opposing point guards. Javon Pickett with a very good game, though. 17 points, 2 for 3 from 3. Still kind of this trend of Missouri not shooting too many 3-pointers that I'm so happy to see. They've kind of curbed that a little bit. Yeah,
it does kind of feel like they're finding an identity a little bit. Amari Davis has looked pretty nice recently. It looks like he's maybe gaining some confidence. Obviously, Boogie Coleman has really been stuff on the stat sheet recently.
Kobe, though, I said it when we were talking about the Alabama game. This was 2 games in a row, single-digit points in 30-plus minutes.
Yeah.
At least he had 11 rebounds in this one.
Yeah. DeGray, he's kind of doing the dirty work still, has some good moments. But, yeah, we really still just need a more reliable scorer from somewhere and or some guy that can shoot, that can stretch the defense a little bit. And that seems like a pretty obvious thing this team lacks, and we've known that all season.
Yeah. Distributing ball handler would go a long way, too.
They
call those point guards.
Point guard, yes.
All right, so now Missouri is 8-11 overall, 2-5 in the SEC. They're ranked 131 in KenPom, 176 on offense, 120 on defense. Great improvement, though, after the Texas A&M loss. Going into the Ole Miss game, they were 172. So 3 games later, jumped up 41 spots.
I wish we could play UMKC again.
Yeah.
How did we lose to UMKC and then almost beat the number 1 team in the country on the same floor in the same season?
Those transfers, it just took them a while to gel.
That's part of it, but they somehow fell asleep on the second game of the year.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a head scratcher. It's I mean, we've talked about it before. That's the type of game where no matter what happens the rest of the way, you'd have to have a miraculous stretch at the end of the season to get on the NCAA bubble with a loss like that on your resume. This week we have the Big 12 SEC Challenge. Missouri goes on the road to play Iowa State. This is obviously, since they're in the Big 12, not a team that a lot of Mizzou fans are going to be familiar with. And yet again, just my pet peeve of playing the same teams over and over again. We've played Iowa State 2 other times already in like the last 4 years. Yeah. So here we go again.
And this is weird because this was a team that was pretty bad last year, like really bad. And all of a sudden are really good this year. I mean, they've cooled off a little bit.
Right.
But
they might hold Missouri to like 49 points.
Yeah. Oh, this could definitely be one of those games where Missouri just scores like 7 points in the first half of the first half.
Yeah, first 10 minutes they call that. Or quarter even.
The first quarter, yeah.
Yeah, Iowa State
like 32-7.
Iowa State 6th in the country in defensive efficiency. Number 4 in defensive turnover percentage. Number 6 in defensive 3-point percentage allowed. 14th in steal percentage and 15th in non-steal turnover percentage. So no matter what you're doing, they're going to make you turn over the ball.
You're turning the ball over. Who is their coach?
Their coach is T.J. Otzelberger.
Who is that?
Previously of South Dakota State and UNLV.
Okay.
This is his first season at Iowa State.
Wow. Oh my word.
Yeah.
That is everything you dream of whenever you get a new coach.
So yeah, Iowa State last year was 2-22 on the season with a conference record of 0-18. So yeah, they were not good.
What?
So Steve Prohm was fired, believe it or not.
What are they in KenPom now? Like top 30?
31. They started the season like 113, and now they're 31.
That's like a fairy tale.
Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah. Wow. They started the season 12-0. They had pretty good wins over Xavier, Memphis, Creighton, Iowa. Some of those on the road. Since Big 12 play started, they are 2-5 in their last 7 games. Close loss to Baylor, 1-point loss to Kansas. And then they beat Texas Tech and Texas, 2 top 15 teams. So I'd say they're legit. Just the Big 12 is stacked conference.
Really Missouri's going to get smoked in this game. Absolutely smoked.
It is on the road. Yeah.
Honestly, like Auburn was one of those games where it was like I can see a scenario where Missouri makes this game close. We talked about that last week. This game, I don't have that same sentiment.
Yeah, I will be pretty surprised, and I'll have to take everything back if Missouri keeps this one close. If they go on the road to Iowa State and like have a chance to win this down the stretch,
I think we could say this team is for sure better.
Yes.
And you could probably already say that.
Yeah.
But you could say this team has a chance to be decent
right.
if everybody stays on board next year. I think we're like kind of moving to that point. We're being in games with good teams. Like if we continue to do that, but this game, I just don't know if I see it.
Yeah. Iowa State doesn't play a lot of players. They really rely on 3 guys. One of them is a freshman, Tyrese Hunter. He is a point guard. He's really, really good, plays a ton of minutes, has one of the better assist rates in the country. He's also pesky on defense, gets a ton of steals, so he will be a problem. They're not an incredible three-point shooting team. They don't shoot a lot of threes, but see if I can pronounce this guy's name, Gabe Kalscheur. I don't know. He's a senior guard. He takes a lot of threes. He's shot 103 threes on the season, but only shooting 26%. So it's kind of a guy that could get hot at any moment, and we hope it doesn't come in this game. But yeah, I got to agree with you. Like I said, Iowa State's defense is incredible. They play really, really good defense at home, especially. The crowd will be all in on this one. I hope Missouri scores at least 50 points. After that, Missouri plays Florida. So it is at home. This is the kind of game where you need to hang around. You need to have a chance to win this game. There's not that many conference games left. In the grand scheme of things, we're over halfway through the overall season. It is almost February, so if this Missouri team wants to take a step to not be in the bottom 4 of the conference come SEC tournament time, this is the kind of game you need to be competitive in and have a chance to win. Florida's pretty well-rounded. A little bit of a disappointing season probably for their standards. They did just lose to Ole Miss on the road and only scored 54 points in that game. So that's pretty bad.
Yeah, Missouri's in that stretch where if they don't beat Florida, I mean, they might lose 7 or 8 in a row because it's just a really difficult stretch where they're in, and we knew that coming into the year. I mean, we picked the game, or we picked the schedule game by game, and I remember this stretch was like, oh man, they could seriously lose like 10 here if they don't figure out how to win some of the games they have to pull out, and this is definitely one where I think they have to beat Florida at home, especially with Florida kind of slumping lately.
Yeah, Florida's decent, though. 44th in KenPom, 55th on offense, 44th on defense.
It's kind of they're doing like a little bit of a transfer experiment, kind of like Missouri did this year, where they really went out and got some of the best transfers off in the market last year. I remember they were just pulling everybody. I mean, obviously, Brandon McKissick is one of those guys that Missouri was in on, and maybe even was down to his final 2 as Missouri and Florida, and high volume, like 3-point shooter was he at UMKC?
Yeah, I think so.
And I mean, they have some other really talented, like high scoring mid-major guys that they pulled. So it seems like one of those. It seemed like one of those teams that could really put it together as the season went on, but I feel like they've actually done the opposite.
Yeah, they have a transfer from Charleston Southern named Philandris Fleming. Philandris with a PH. Philandris Fleming.
I thought that was a double F.
No.
Philandris. That's a great name Fleming. Either way.
Yeah. He's one of their better offensive players, shooting 33% from 3, gets to the free throw line a lot, 80% from the free throw line. He's kind of like a hybrid guard wing player, blocks a lot of shots, gets a lot of offensive rebounds. One of their higher usage guys. And, of course, they still have Colin Castleton,
he's the villain. Yeah,
he's kind of annoying to play against, but it's always nice to have somebody to root against.
Mm-hmm.
He's having a pretty decent season. Brandon McKissick actually disappointing, I think, for Florida this year. Sub 100 offensive rating, so below average.
What's he shooting from 3?
25% on 72 attempts. Not great. Still scoring around the rim, though, really well. And high steals guy. Along with fellow guard Tyree Appleby. He is another senior. He transferred 2 years ago to Florida from Cleveland State. So that's college basketball now, though. Yep. I mean, half a team's roster played somewhere else usually. I don't know.
Mike White, is his seat a little hot?
I wouldn't think
warm.
So. Maybe
hot's too extreme.
Yeah, maybe a little bit warm. I'm not up to date on what their like incoming recruits look like, but yeah.
Does it matter what they look like?
No, it matters what they play basketball like, which is what I meant. They honestly probably are not going to make the NCAA tournament this year. I mean, they're
probably a bubble team.
Yeah, and they'll be one of those high major teams that gets their spot taken by a conference tournament upset.
Or they'll be one of those high major teams that steals a spot from some deserving mid major.
Yeah.
And they'll get in with like double-digit losses just because they're Florida.
They'll be like they'll play in the play-in game and then also make the Elite Eight or something.
As an 11 seed.
Yes.
Yep. Do you remember we said that?
We just predicted both extremes.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, Mike White. It's hard to the like frame of reference for a Mizzou fan of like what other teams should do with their head coaches is a little bit confusing sometimes. But They would have gone to the canceled NCAA tournament for sure. That would have been 5 tournaments in 6 seasons for him before this year.
They're like a 7-ish seed last year.
Yep, 7 seed. They were a 4 seed his second year. Made it to the Elite 8. They have not lost in the first round in any of his 4 trips to the NCAA tournament.
Well, sometimes those expectations at a program like that can be inflated, especially for coaches that have been there for a little while. Sometimes it seems like the leash can be a little shorter for a down year if you've been there for 4 or 5 years. So
yeah, I'd say
this is a critical year.
Yeah,
probably.
Yeah. The way this season is going, if it continues like exactly like it is, and they don't make the NCAA tournament, then I would say next year is a make or break season for old Mike White.
I think Mizzou's going to win this game.
I like your optimism.
I think they'll win 73-70.
I don't want to bring any negativity in, so I'll just agree with you.
Tell the truth.
I think they're going to win 73-70. I hope they do. Anything else? Hopefully we have some good officiating in these games. Hopefully the Big 12 refs are even keel. But I don't know.
That's going to be an ugly game.
Yeah. But looking forward to the Florida game at home.
Yeah.
Honestly.
I think that's it.
All right. Well, special thank you to our Patreon supporters at the $10 level and above: Britt Treese, Brian Smith, Ryan Lee, Tristan, Ben Smith, Parker, Daddy JD, Luis Hernandez, Tim Keynes, and Tyler Harsel. That list is getting long. I love it. It can get longer. Feel free.
Yeah, just a beautiful group of young men. Thank you, everybody. You can find this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts, or on Twitter at Mizzou Sports Pod. And you can email us at MissouriSportsPod@gmail.com. And I just remembered something, but go ahead and do your part.
I already did. It's up to Cameron.
You can find our stickers on our online shop. No T-shirts because they're sold out. Thank you guys for all that.
Yeah.
We're working on getting some more. MissouriSportsPod.BigCartel.com.
And one more thing. Hopefully you're still listening. I got to give a shout out to Eddie Rose on Twitter. He asked for a shout out, and he's a loyal Twitter follower, and always has some takes for us. So appreciate your engagement, Eddie. Hope you're having a good day.
Shout out to Eddie. Thank you everyone for listening. We will see you next week.